Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen in healthy love. Today, we have a guest by the name of Jen Dayton, and they have been on the show before last year when we talked about nervous system regulation, and I will be linking that episode in the show notes. So let's reintroduce you to Jen, or introduce you to Jen for the first time if maybe you're a bit newer to the show. Jen is a queer, neurodivergent stoner, animal lover, and mind-body wizard on a mission to make growth and healing more silly, fun, and deeply human. With a background in massage therapy, structural integration, and integrative change work, they blend bodywork and neuroscience to help people master their nervous systems, reclaim the parts of themselves they've been hiding, and make choices from a place of safety and self-trust. And in today's episode, we are basically rethinking love, sex, and attraction through a queer lens and kind of talking about what it is that straight women can learn from examining queer relationships and bringing in kind of different perspectives and out of the box thinking when it comes to your own sexuality, even if it's just with yourself, and relationship structures and all of those things. And we also talk a little bit about societal conditioning and how that all plays in, and how the patriarchy really isn't good for anyone, including cis straight people. And I really, really loved this conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. And if you do enjoy it, please leave this show a review on Apple Podcasts. I am currently working on the goal of getting it its first 200 ratings. So if you could make a little dent in that, I would so appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here today, and let's get into the show. Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen in healthy relationships. On this show, we talk about self-love, sexuality, relationship tips, including ending the cycle of toxic relationships, and healing and thriving after heartbreak. Hi, I'm your host, Cilia, and I am a certified sex, love, and relationship coach, helping ambitious women with a history of toxic relationships feel deeply connected in healthy love. These are such important topics that every woman deserves, so if you could leave this show a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help more women find this, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here today. Now let's dive into the show. Hi, Jen. Thank you
Hi.
hi. Thank you for coming back to the show.
Oh, it's such a joy. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. I'm curious, as we dive in, what's on your heart today? Like, what are you coming in with? Anything you
Oh.
feel that you want to share?
I mean, I've been thinking about this episode a lot over the past couple of weeks since we've talked about this topic being on the menu. And honestly, between everything we're going to talk about today and everything I have going on in my life, I'm just feeling really stoked about the power of choice. I feel like there's a big, I know so many people right now who are in this big, moment of change in their life, whether it's feels very personal to them, it's about their career or their relationship, but then there's also so much turmoil happening in the world and in the United States right now. So I think it's really it's a really potent time to just think about all of the possibilities and be thinking outside the box about how we want to live and the kind of people we want to be.
Yeah.
I'm very stoked to be a part of that, the revolution,
I love that so much. Yeah. So what kind of change are you moving through right now? Since you said
I,
that.
yeah. I just moved into my own house.
Ooh.
It's very exciting. I'm setting up the space to support my business and, you know, my life as an adult. A couple of years ago, my whole life kind of got turned upside down, and I moved back to my home state unexpectedly, and I've really started over from scratch in a lot of ways.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So this feels like a little sanctuary for me to ask those big questions and lay the
Yeah.
groundwork for doing kind of the big scary things that I've always known were, a part of me, but maybe didn't always have the resources or the courage to try. Like, the home and starting my career over, it all feels like, um, yeah, just a big invitation to be like, what do you really, really want? Like you
Mm.
have this special opportunity to like there are no rules, there are no past obligations or ties to think about whenever you're considering your next step. So like now that the whole wide world is open to you, what's the next step gonna be?
Yeah, that's so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, scary but exciting.
Hmm.
Mostly exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about having our own space or even like upgrading our space or changing our space. Our environment really does have an impact. And
Yeah.
yeah. And for me, as someone who's like a renter who has moved a lot, um, always at the end when you're moving out, like there's this moment of kind of closure and realizing how much you learned in this space. And it's kind of like a heartbreak, but it's kind of like, so I wonder if that happened for you before moving out, where you're like, oh, in this place, I moved through blank.
For sure. And it's been a while since I've had a place. I think that was a big part of getting this place too, is before moving here, I was traveling and staying with friends and family. I had a remote job and was, road tripping all the time. And it was so fun. But yeah, the last time I had a place was when I was living in Portland in like 2021, and my dog had just died and I was just turning 30. Like, talk
Oh,
about the
oh,
tides turning.
yeah.
So yeah, leaving that place behind was very emotional. But you're moving out of your place right now too, right?
Yeah, I'm about to move into a house for the first time since I lived with my parents. So for the first time in like 15 years.
Instead of an apartment.
Instead, right now we live in a townhouse, so it's kind of
Okay.
like a house. And yeah, we're moving all the way to Cincinnati from Los Angeles.
Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. At first, I was terrified because, it's the Midwest and shit be crazy right now.
For real.
But thankfully, like with the tools we have at our hands, I joined this Facebook group for the area, and it's called Witchy Women of Cincinnati. And I've been like making friends in there and putting posts about like, will I be safe there? We're moving from LA. We're both pretty progressive. Like, we don't want to have to put on a show all the time and
Yeah,
act like we're okay with stuff that's not okay. And yeah,
for sure.
thankfully it's pretty it's like it's a swing state, so you have both there.
And I kind of love the idea of, people like us, maybe people from big cities or a little on the progressive slash weird end of the spectrum, moving to more conservative leaning places. I think that that's going to be a really important part of La Revolution. And
Yeah,
yeah,
good
I moved
point.
from the Northwest to Texas, and I'm in Austin. So it's like kind of, the weirdest place we got around here. But it was a complicated decision for sure. This is where my support network was, but I didn't see myself coming back to Texas in my lifetime. So
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
there's something to be said for just like planting roots where you are and, doing whatever you do wherever you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all have that innate creativity that we can if we stop resisting what is, we can be like, okay, this is what I've got. Like, how can we make this work?
Ugh. Yeah. And honestly, this ties so much into what I'm excited to talk about today. Like, I feel like, I'm excited to talk about what I've learned from queer dating that I think straight people, you know, if any of you lovely, lovely straight women have not put thought to these things before, I'm so excited for you to be a part of this conversation because, yeah, even if you don't want to have queer relationships, there's something really beautiful about taking a step back and being like, what do I really want here? Examining the the house that we've grown up in and um
It's a big
maybe if
one.
it's if we're not moving out of that house by trying different relationships, maybe we're just looking at this house and being like, what kind of house do I want to make this into? How do I want to decorate this house? How do I want this house to serve me? What do I want to do in this house? Metaphorically speaking. Um, I I uh, I I think that it's a queer people are kind of forced to examine these things in ways that straight people aren't, but ultimately I see it as such a blessing, that I was forced into thinking about relationships in an outside the box kind of way.
I love that. I love that you're like, I see this as a blessing because I'm going to guess that you didn't always think that way about it. Yeah.
It's been complicated for sure.
I believe you. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, I don't have a super tight outline here, but maybe I'll start with kind of my coming out story, speaking of the not so fun parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And again, just want to preface this with like whatever you feel safe to share. Just share whatever you feel safe to share.
Thank you. I feel like as far as, um, the spectrum of stories I've heard, my coming out story was pretty okay. But um, I think it was actually kind of right in the sweet spot of my ability to tolerate discomfort because I learned a lot from it. So, before I get too into my analyzation here, let me fill you in. So gosh, how old was I? I was young. I must have been in my early 20s whenever I first started to really consider identifying as bisexual. I had maybe known a little of that about myself as a teenager. Like I definitely experimented with girls as a teenager, but I felt the need to label it as like straight girl making out with other girls while drunk. Uh,
Yeah.
I just find women really beautiful, but I want to date men, so I'm obviously not gay. Which is another like being bisexual is kind of interesting compared to other queer experiences because there's kind of a like straight gay binary. So I think even considering the possibility that I was something other than straight or gay took a while for me to come around
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
So yes, up until, throughout my teens, I was just like attracted to girls in a super straight way, that was not performative. Like I would be like behind closed doors, not in front of men, being into women, but it was so straight of me. Um, then in my 20s, I'm living in a big liberal city and I am being exposed to more different types of people and the possibility that I might be bisexual is becoming more and more present on my mind. Um I think the I think I had kind of like decided for myself like I have this attraction or this proclivity before I like hooked up with a girl. And I kind of like told some of my friends, like, I want to hook up with a girl. And then on my 22nd birthday, I like super drunkenly hooked up with a girl.
Mm.
Notice all the like layers
This-
that I need to peel
yeah.
back to even just get there, right? I'm
Yeah.
okay with telling people I'm attracted to girls. I still can't do it without needing some sort of like big like party girl excuse, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but after that, I was like, okay, I want to like get on dating apps and try going on dates with women.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think I, like, just for practical purposes, had been out to all the close friends in my life, like, had been updating them on the fact that I was going on dates with women. And
That's great that you had that
yeah,
like
coming out to my
support.
friends was like no big deal. I didn't
Awesome.
ever even thought
Fucking
twice
love
about
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin, Texas, baby. Gotta love it here. And yeah, it's weird because I knew queer people in high school. I was always like very like pro LGBT. Um, but this personal identity journey was much more complex.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so I started going on dates with girls, but it wasn't until I was in a relationship, like a kind of a relationship that was starting to get a little more serious, that I decided I really need to come out with my family. Um, that was a catalyst, and then another catalyst was that the year prior, I spent the holidays with my family, and they had this like extremely homophobic discussion at the table in front of me, and I like went into a freeze state and didn't say anything. And I went and told my therapist about it like immediately after, and she was like, I don't I don't want that to happen again. Like, if you need to leave the room, fine. But I feel like that was serious enough that I was like, okay, I need a plan to like come out to my
Yeah.
family.
Uh-huh.
But that was like I think there was like almost a full year or like the better part of a year between that holiday experience and me getting a girlfriend and deciding I needed to tell my family.
Mhm.
And okay, you want to hear the funniest, most people pleaser, perfectionist story ever? I had to come up with the perfect plan to make my parents not react the way that I didn't want them to react, you know? So
Uh-huh. That's a
I
hard
designed
yeah.
tall
Hard
order,
goal.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't work. Spoiler alert. But here are the links that I went to. So first I was like, I want it to be fun. So I designed like a card.
Okay.
It had like champagne glasses on the front and it said, "Cheers, I'm queer."
And you gave that to your
Uh,
parents?
oh, not only that, it was a card and then I baked a rainbow cake. And I
Oh my
put the card
gosh.
and the cake together. And I also wrote a very long letter. This was the part where I got serious. And the letter was like, I'm queer. This is what that means. I was like trying to sort the facts out. I was like, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It doesn't mean that I'm confused. Da-na-na-na-na. Like, I already knew, even if I hadn't had anybody in my personal life react to me like that, I had absorbed from the culture, like, this is how society is going to react to you whenever you
Mhm.
tell them this about yourself.
Mhm.
Um,
And especially with that conversation at the holidays the
I
year
mean, I already
before.
knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. So, I'm trying to get out ahead of it. I'm like, here's all the things. I was like, don't call me right away. Like, take a minute to absorb this information before you decide what you're going to say to me.
Yes.
Um, and please know that I'm telling you this because I want to connect with you and like, I want you to be in on this part of my life. And like, I hope this can bring us
Awesome.
closer and not like, and not be something that causes you to reject me. I'm sure there was some vulnerability in there. I'm like a 23-year-old baby writing this. So, um, I wish I would have looked for the letter because how cute would that have been? But
Yeah.
anyway, basically I poured my heart out in the letter, I sent it in the mail with the cake and the card because I for real, I did not want to see their
Distance.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you take a breather before I don't want to see your initial reaction. I want to see your thoughtful
Mm.
reaction.
Mm. That was very smart.
Um, it wasn't because they didn't do that.
Oh shit.
they they did it. They called me like right away. But I got two different reactions. I and it was interesting who reacted which way at the time. Um, but my mom, who I would generally have said growing up that I felt closer to, she was the one who reacted in a way that was very like, "Oh no," and like, "Oh, what's wrong?" and "Why didn't you tell me?" and I don't know, and like, "Can you not post pictures of your girlfriend online?" And I'm just, it was like she was uncomfortable, and she like was trying to. In hindsight, I can see like she knew she wasn't supposed to reject me outright.
Mm.
Like it's too, too late for that. It's not 1975 anymore. Um, but she was uncomfortable and she didn't know how to navigate that. So she asked
So
weird
that was all
questions
what came
and
out. Yeah.
made it about her.
Can
But
I
my
just
dad,
say, I hate the
yeah,
question, why didn't you tell me? Like, dude, I'm fucking telling you now. Like, it
yeah,
doesn't fucking matter. I didn't tell you before. I'm telling you now. I
it's
hate
just a
that
way to.
question.
I know. Well, like I have two feelings about that question, which is A, like this is why your reaction is
Yeah.
fucking
Fair point.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And B, you're just making this about you.
Yes.
You can't hold space for my feelings right now because you're having
Yeah.
like an emotional immaturity attack. So, um, not that I could see it that way as in my early 20s, but yeah, so my mom had an emotional immaturity attack but my dad called and apologized for having said homophobic things in the past and for making me feel like he would have rejected me for that. He was like, I can see why you felt that way, and I hate that I ever said anything to make you feel like I wouldn't love you.
I love that.
Yeah, like
That's so
I was like
sweet.
bawling. Yeah. So, complicated time emotionally. um,
Mhm.
it's and now that I've had more distance from those reactions too, I can see a little bit more. Like, I don't want to say that my dad wasn't being genuine, but I also see his capacity to be kind of calculated and like knowing how, like, what people want to hear.
Okay.
And I don't think that he like read that letter and like turned from a homophobe to a queer rights icon overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
No, people don't do that. And, they didn't like, oh, I also forgot to mention that in my package, I included a book about like the science of sexuality. They didn't read the books. They didn't like try to educate themselves on like how to like, be supportive. Um, they just kind of like fumbled through in the ways that their nervous system reacted. So maybe his nervous system reacted by being like, oh no, like I need to hurry up and repair. And my mom's was a little bit more of a scramble. Um, but yeah, I think that at, if I knew nothing else at that point, I had definitely learned that, to just like shield myself against my parents' reactions because they were unpredictable and at times
Mhm.
I want to say volatile, but volatile to my nervous system as a young person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what was the book that you sent them? As a book nerd, I want to know.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I'm going to silently Google it real quick.
How does one loudly Google?
I was just remembering the editing thing and I thought maybe I would try to make our lives easier, but
Oh, by saying the
I
word
can
Google?
loudly Google. I remember. Okay, here it is. uh, Gay, Straight, and the Reason Why, The Science of Sexual Orientation by Simon LeVay.
I'm writing that down.
The little blurb that Google says is what causes a child to grow up gay or straight. In this book, neuroscientist Simon LeVay summarizes a wealth of scientific evidence that points to one inescapable conclusion. Sexual orientation results primarily from an interaction between genes, sex hormones, and the cells of the developing body and brain.
Love that.
Basically, it's like, because one of the questions that I did get asked and that I think a lot of queer people have been asked is like, is there something I could have done to make you not queer? Like, did I make a mistake as a parent that made you come out wrong?
I totally remember as a kid, like learning from society. I don't know if it was from my parents or from like a show, like learning that if you were queer, it meant you, like something happened to you, like you got like
Yeah.
molested or something. And
Yeah.
yeah, not
And
true.
like, you can hear, stories of like people trying to take the little gay boy's Barbie dolls away because like that was going to prevent him from becoming gay when he grew up. And it's like, all you did was teach him to feel confused about who he
Yes,
is
yes,
and that being into Barbie dolls is something to be ashamed of and to hide,
yeah. Also,
you're
it's
creating
really, as someone who's worked in a daycare, it's really fucking stupid to gender toys. Like,
so stupid.
they're just playing. It doesn't have anything to do with their sexuality whatsoever.
But you know what it does have to do with? The fact that men grow up thinking they're not supposed to change diapers and women are, you know?
Yes,
Fucking
yes,
like you take away all the domestic practice toys from boys and then wonder why they don't want to do
yes,
domestic shit. Like, come on.
yes. And same
Ridiculous.
same goes with like cars.
Oh,
Typically,
yeah.
women are like, "Oh, I don't know about car." I mean, I'm guilty of this. I don't know shit about
Yeah.
cars.
No, you changed my oil, man, Yeah. And it's like, if you let a little girl, and sure, sometimes kids are just naturally interested in some things and not interested in others. And sometimes that aligns with the gender expectations we have in society. But if you just naturally allow people to be interested in what they're interested in, they're going to be the most well-rounded version of themselves as an adult, the
Yeah,
most, you know, the best contributing member of society, like parents say they want their kids to be. So,
yeah, yeah. Because at the bottom of all that, like you're teaching them it's safe to explore, to be curious, to be themselves.
yeah.
And that's so important.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, those gender roles mess with queer kids' brains growing up, but they mess with straight kids' brains too. They like the patriarchal divisions, they mess with, we were told this version of reality that women are supposed to be more sensitive and emotionally mature. And it's where the good girl syndrome comes from. And it's where the emotionally stunted men come from. It's why men don't talk to other men about their feelings or their relationship issues or like really have deep friendships in general. The male loneliness epidemic is not because women don't put out, it's because men don't cry in front of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
I was just going to steer us back to your story.
Me too.
Okay. Okay,
I
cool.
was going back to my timeline. I was just thinking like those gender norms that we absorb, like they turn into, these standards that we have for relationships. I think that this is like the most important takeaway that I am going to end up harping on 1,000 times throughout this episode. But like, you see memes and like jokes about it now. People are starting to come around, especially by women, to the idea that like we have such low standards for men in relationships compared to the standards we have for women. I can even see it in myself as a bi woman. Like, my friend and I, one time, we were discussing this phenomenon about how, like, you know, I might be talking about a date with a woman and who I don't want to go out with again. And my friends will be like, oh, why don't you want to go out with her again? And I'm like, I don't know, like, we just don't like the same type of movies or whatever. Like, it'll be like just, I don't know, something that on the surface seems like really small.
Uh-huh.
But then, you go on a date with a man, and if he didn't like shit on the table or something, or if he like, wasn't just coercive, rude, abusive, like completely unable to hold a conversation, you're like, oh, he's actually pretty decent for for a guy. Like, why would we accept the things that we accept, in straight relation? I love my straight friends, and I'm like angry protective of them because I'm like, do not let somebody treat you like that. I don't care if he's a man. I don't care
Mm.
if you have all these feelings about, the way the patriarchy has affected him and the way he doesn't have friends and the way he doesn't have family and the way he doesn't have emotional maturity and he's emotionally stunted and he's working on it and he's learning this skill, but he's behind me in this way. And so I have to wait for him to catch up. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
What if you really believed, like wholeheartedly? What if you had this like worldview belief that there was an abundance of men out there who could treat you well and be smart and respect you and like lift you up? Would you be putting up with the behaviors that you're putting up with now?
Nope.
It took dating women, largely for me to see a lot of that. And I
Uh,
still, like, my last long-term relationship was with a man, and I look back at that and I think I stayed in that way too long. I put up with things that I look back on now and I'm like, woof. Um,
Same.
and I had a very different perspective of him and of our relationship in no small part because of the fact that he was a man, that he was raised as a man, because the society that we live in acted on him in certain ways and on me in certain ways.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, even though I'm queer and we were both, progressive and feminist, the relationship ended up taking on these like very stereotypical straight relationship man woman problematic dynamics, where I was doing more of the housework and I was doing
Mhm.
more of the like bringing up difficult conversations. And, um, he would shut down or express his frustration by throwing things, not at me, but at the ground. And if a woman, like, can you picture a woman doing that?
No, she wouldn't do that in front of her partner because in our society, we would label a woman that does that as crazy.
Yeah. Oh, oh, that's a whole nother part of the rabbit hole. Yeah. Like there are so many behaviors that we just excuse men for that we don't tolerate in women.
Yeah, so true.
So, I look back on, the first time he ever like threw something at the ground out of frustration. And the fact that my reaction was to go on a walk and calm down so I could go back home and like work it out
Mm,
once he calmed down after his little tantrum,
mm,
like,
mhm.
like momming, momming. So I've never parented a woman partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oof. So I think that there's like something to be said for like, I don't know, like even if you have no intention of ever dating women, sometimes looking at your male partner's behavior through the lens of like, if a woman did this,
Yeah.
what would I think about it? How would I feel about it?
Mhm.
Because I think if you try to tell a woman, like, if the roles were reversed between you and him, her empathy and attachment, um, feelers are still on.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
you just like take it out of put it in the societal framework of man woman, it can really change the way you think of it.
Mhm. That's very smart. Yeah. I see stuff like this all the time as a female sexuality coach where like women who date men, they like First of all, they don't believe that men exist who are emotionally intelligent. They don't believe, maybe they'll be clear about what kind of man they want, but then they somehow believe that like that kind of guy will not be into them.
They think it's unrealistic or like they want too much. They have too high
Yes.
of standards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, where did you learn this idea that your standards were wrong? That the
Where
way
did you
your
learn that
nervous
you're
system,
too much?
yeah. Where did you learn that whenever your nervous system says, I have this need and I like being treated like this and I don't like being treated like this? Where did you learn to override that and say, well, I need to logic that away so that
Mm-hmm.
I can accommodate what this person is telling me?
Mm-hmm. And then for straight women too, there's also this like kind of rush to hurry up and find a partner, like find the husband,
Mhm.
especially when you're like approaching 30. I feel like a lot of women I've seen have had that. I've had that too in my past.
Nobody's rushing men to get married in,
Nope.
when they're turning 30, by the way.
Nope.
It's all about like, well, it's all about like you being a baby incubator. How are you going to incubate babies if you don't hurry up and get married before you're 30?
Yeah. And that's
Mm.
another thing too that I've been coming up against is like realizing how much I've been conditioned to be a mom one day. Like it's just like assumed of me and I was never asked like, do you want to do that? Do you not? So currently my husband and I were like completely on the fence. We're like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that that's another big difference between queer relationships and straight relationships is like people generally tend to understand that like in a queer relationship, having a child is a big conversation, a big decision that requires thought and planning
Mhm.
and not everybody is going to choose. And that, it's not just assumed that you're going to do
Yes.
that and that you're going to do it in this one particular way. But in straight relationships, there's like this relationship escalator. You first, the man asks you out, and then you guys hold hands. And then you kiss. Or if you're a dirt,
KISSING. Do you remember that
yeah,
song?
unless you're a dirty little floozy who opens her legs on the first date. But then you guys get married and then you have babies and yada yada yada. There's this like order of operations that's assumed
Yeah.
in the world of straight relationships and straight dating that queer people have just had to be kind of like, we're taking it day by day and we're making it up as we go.
Mhm. Yeah.
That
Sounds nice.
honestly, yeah, everybody should have the freedom to take it day by day and make things up as they go and make things that make sense for them as individuals and as a couple
Mhm. Mhm.
rather than like what society expects from you and like this obligation to create grandchildren for your parents like I
Yeah.
hate that.
I hate that too. Yeah. Luckily my parents are not like that.
Yeah. I feel like there's a common thread of it just being like of respecting someone as an individual, like
Yes. So
of
true.
just like letting someone dictate their own life rather than
Yeah.
having this sort of like preset idea for how their life should go. You could say the same
Yeah.
thing about like expectations around education and college and whatever else. But like, I think in general, just having a kid with expectations placed on them from the time that they're born is a recipe for pain and shame. And
For sure.
it's not breeding connection, it's breeding disconnection.
For sure. Yeah. That's why I've always thought it's like so heartbreaking and doesn't make sense to me as someone who I am pretty like motherly. It doesn't make sense to me to when I see parents who like completely reject their child because they came out to them. I'm like, dude, that like was your baby and you're telling them to like that they're dead to you? Like what the fuck? That's some fucked up shit.
Yeah. And to me, that's almost kind of a sign that that person, I feel like, I don't want to say that there are black and white, like right and wrong reasons to have kids. But I do think that I've seen plenty of people who had kids because they thought that that was what they were supposed to do. And
Yeah.
that was like the next logical step in their life. And that was what was expected of them. And I think that whenever we're making decisions from that place, you're way more at a risk to not be a good parent, to not be coming from a place of love. Like there's way more a higher chance for resentment, for seeing this child as something that's supposed to meet your needs. Because I did this thing that I was supposed to do, and I suffered for it because I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I was supposed to do it. And you're welcome. And now you make me feel validated as a mom. And now you make me feel like I did a good job. And you take care of me and make me feel good. And that's
Mm.
the unspoken contract of like boomer parent, millennial child dynamic.
So
Um,
unhealthy. Gen X too. My parents are Gen X.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, you go back and it's, maybe even stronger like that. But it's really sad.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sad to see parent-child relationships suffer or end
Yeah.
because um because of what I mean, I see it as because of resentment, because of making those choices for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
because you weren't ready to like love a being unconditionally, or you weren't ready to have this experience that isn't about you. Being a parent,
Yeah.
it isn't about you. It's
Yeah.
about like creating a container for another being to like discover who they are and like
Yes.
become that and
Yes.
thrive,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is a huge responsibility. And so I also like, I'm good with kids. I love kids. And I've also gotten a lot of like, well, you should be a mom because of that. And I don't, I don't think I would enjoy being a mom. I don't think that that's in the cards for me. And I don't think that the fact that I like kids and am good with kids makes me obligated to
Yeah.
expend that much of my time and energy on that project. I have so many other projects that I think are a better use of my time and energy and skills.
Yeah. For sure. And like being good with kids and having the role of mother or parent are two completely different realities.
For real.
Like
For
that is a
real.
role that you either decide to play that game or you're like, nah, I'm opting out. And I think part of it too is like you mentioned the expectation. It's kind of expected of a lot of people to have kids. Like that's how we're conditioned. And so when we are, for lack of a better word, smart enough to be like, to see that and be like, do I want it or not? And like we make the decision on whether we want it or not. If we opt out, way more people are opting in, I think. I don't know. I haven't looked into the data. But if we opt out, the people that opted in because they didn't really want to do it, but they felt like it was an expectation, they're pissed. They're
Yeah.
like, who are you to opt out? What the fuck? You got to suffer like I do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to do things differently than other people, you have to learn to recognize whenever people are mad at you because of their own resentment, because it's going to
Yeah.
happen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to learn to just be like, maybe not out loud, maybe more often than not internally, just be like, I'm really sorry that things didn't work out the way that you hoped and expected they would, that you didn't get the reward that you thought you were going to get from this sacrifice, that that's
Mhm.
not my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I can't take that pain away by living my life in a way that makes me miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
If anything, people like us are like, maybe to some people, we're agitating something and making them pissed off and resentful and mad at us. But for other people, it's like a lighthouse. They might see that and be like, I didn't know you could do that. I
Yeah.
didn't know you could be bisexual. I didn't know you could be in a straight marriage but not have kids. I
Mhm.
didn't know you could sleep in separate bedrooms. I didn't know you could have an open relationship. That's another thing that queer people have sort of like I think open relationships are kind of having a moment right now, but
Hmm.
queer people have been open relating for a long time, because once you are challenging society's relationship norms when it comes to a man and a woman being together, excuse me, I'm getting over being sick. Ugh,
I love your tattoo, by the way.
thank you. Once you kind of go through the emotional labor required to challenge society's expectations of a man and a woman are supposed to date each other, you start to question everything else. Like, why does it have to be only two people dating each other? Like, if it
Yeah,
works for me and this other person to do relationships in this other way, why should it be anybody else's business, you know?
for sure. And I feel like if you are someone that like explores that and takes the time to like read the literature on that, it starts to be like, oh, I'm realizing that the monogamy and heterosexuality is pushed on us so that our behaviors are predictable, so that we can easily be marketed products, so that we can be easily controlled. Like,
Yes.
that's the only reason why that exists, in my opinion. Because when you research sexuality and you realize how multifaceted it is, it's kind of like, oh, okay.
The whole idea of the nuclear family is actually pretty isolating.
It is.
Like,
It's very isolating. Yeah.
in
It's destroyed
more,
communities, in my opinion.
for sure.
Yeah.
If you look at like more in places that are closer to their indigenous cultures, like there's a lot of like my neighbor's child is my child, and everybody is working together. And, you know, yeah, Uncle Fred and Uncle Rob, you know, do their thing over there. And that's just how it is. And they're a part of this like big, weird, like multi-dimensional family, you know? Um, there's it takes all kinds, right? Trans Day of Visibility was passed recently at the time of recording this, and I saw so many posts of people showing like black and white photos and just like pictures from the 1800s of trans people, like in indigenous cultures. Trans people have often been recognized and cherished and like prized for the fact that they're different. Um,
Mhm.
I think that all of these ideas of relationships need to be this one way. It's not serving anybody except for the people who are trying to use us for their own gain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not serving anybody. Because then when you don't fit into that box, it's like if anyone's listening to this who's straight, like think about how bonkers it would be to have to go to your parents and be like, let's say you're a girl and be like, I like men. Like that never happens. It's just assumed that you like men.
Yeah.
And that would be a very weird like conversation if you'd be like, yeah, I love dick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And they start asking questions like, well, are you
Are
sure?
you sure?
Have you tried dating women?
Is there
Like,
something I could have done?
men are really dangerous. You should consider becoming gay. I could send you to gay camp where you become gay.
Oh my gosh. I recently watched But I'm a Cheerleader with Natasha Lyonne. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't, but I've heard good things. I love Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, I love her too. It's on YouTube for free. Yeah.
Really
Yeah, it came up there. It came up on my YouTube for free. I'm like, "Oh, free movie. Cool. I'll watch it."
nice.
And
What made you think of it?
because you said gay camp, she gets sent to a gay camp.
Oh, like
Yeah.
trying to make her straight camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A gay conversion camp, I think they're called.
Yeah. And what's so funny is that anti-gay propaganda would have us believe that gay people are out here purposefully trying to turn your kids gay. And like if you actually know any actually gay people, you would realize how silly
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
Like, we know better than anybody that you can't make yourself anyway, because we were the ones laying in bed at night crying, praying to be right and not wrong, to be a way that would make us socially acceptable and not ostracized.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just honoring that like tenderness.
Uh, and look, I don't think, again, like, I don't think that if you were born straight or cis or white or any of the other, like, categories that tend to be deemed normal or right or good or have more privilege in our society. Like, I don't think you need to feel guilty for that or try to change it in any way. Like, it's not about that. It's about deconstructing. Like, I can easily see how this is not serving other people. Maybe you straight allies are like, okay, like,
Mm-hmm.
all this patriarchy and anti-gay stuff, we need to stop hurting the queers and the other people that it hurts. But it's like, it's hurting you too, like,
Yes. Yeah.
you're making a little comment about how annoying it is that your husband can't get the right things at the grocery store or load the dishwasher correctly, but like, you're not recognizing that that's actually all part of the
Yes.
same force, same picture, it's the same thing that's making you resentful in your marriage. It's the same thing that's making you feel stuck. It's the same thing that's making you feel like you have no identity outside of being a mother. It's the same thing
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel like you need to sacrifice your rest and your sanity in order to keep your family functioning. And
Mm-hmm.
all the while, like, making excuses for your male partner, you know?
Yes. Yes.
It ain't right. And if anything, the more I have moved through my own queer journey and it just becomes a part of the past and my identity and no big deal, I am more focused on, like, the my straight friends and my white friends and my cis friends and the people who I now see as, like, at a disadvantage, like having had the disadvantage of not being forced to question any of this, the disadvantage
Mm.
of just, like, being sort of swept along in this
Yeah.
current that
Yeah.
is making everybody sick.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, because there's not really like an age or a point where it's like, all right, now you got to sit down and think about
No.
your sexuality and your identity. And
Especially
like,
people who, like, found their person when they were, like, in their teens or early 20s or something. Like,
yeah,
I know some people who, married their high school sweetheart
I know someone
and
who's married to the person that she dated when she was 14, and this guy was like her very first boyfriend, and they're married and happy, and they have 4 kids together. And I'm like, that is crazy.
I know people like that too. And it is crazy. And I don't wish them to be unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want you to be so happy, but I want you guys to be having the same opportunities to explore yourselves and to
Hmm.
grow in your connection with each other. Like, if you guys really do, like, love each other through and through like that, wouldn't your relationship be able to withstand some difficult conversations and some exploration and some just curiosity? I feel like that curiosity can just be about, like what kind of, oh, we haven't even gotten into the sex side of this. There's so
Yes,
many
there's so much.
assumptions and
Yes.
implied things when it comes to sex. So I feel like, especially in straight relationships, these can be conversations about domestic stuff, but they can be about, like, how do you like to be touched? Like, maybe he's been
Hmm.
following this template that he thought he was supposed to follow, like, where he eats you out until you come, and then, he pounds it out or whatever. And, like, he thought he was being a good feminist man by eating you out first. And maybe you're just like, that's not my deal or whatever. Like, because you guys didn't sit down and have this conversation, you had these preconceived ideas and, like, assumptions about what straight sex is like and what women like and what men like and
Mm-hmm.
what correct and good straight sex is and how often it should happen and like
Yes,
the spectrum of humanity is so broad, y'all. So broad.
it totally is. Yes. Do you need to sign off at the hour? Do you have time to go over? Because,
Okay. I
yeah,
didn't even realize an hour had passed. Oh
I
my
know. I'm
God.
like, this is not enough time. Do you
I've
do you want to
got,
go until like the 30-minute past the hour, or is that too much?
no, that's
You
good.
have that time? Okay, cool.
I blocked off 2 hours in my calendar.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna send a quick text and say that this is running over. Just
I'm
so.
just going to, and I'm going to peek at my notes and see if I have forgotten anything.
Okay, perfect. That's so funny because I have a group call after this, and they already were texting on the WhatsApp if we could push it back to 10:30 or 10:40. I'm like, wow, love it when it's aligned. Um,
Nice.
yeah, bringing in the sexuality piece again opens a whole new can of worms, and I feel like again goes back to the expectations and how like there's a wide spectrum of the human experience, and it's so multifaceted. And if we want to like specifically speak to women, and we mentioned earlier about like society and patriarchy teaching us certain ways of being and certain roles and all of that, what I see way too often and what I received as well was that women are not encouraged to explore their sexuality. They're not properly educated about their bodies and like what you even have in your pussy. Like we're not told what is what different kinds of orgasms you can have because there are many. Like it's like for me personally, I'm 35 and I didn't really start exploring self-pleasure until I was like 29, 30 because of shame. Like I've done it before as a kid, but then I felt so much shame about it that I like promised myself once, like when I was like 13 or something, I'm like, I will never touch myself again. Like I'm not gonna do that. So
Oh,
I outsourced my pleasure to my partners. And that happens so much. A lot of women feel this. Like my story is not unique.
that is such a, I love the way you put that. I outsourced my pleasure to my partners. I feel like, I mean, the conversation about women's pleasure even being a factor in sex is relatively new, it feels like,
Yeah.
in the sort of, bigger picture of recent humanity. Um, and it's funny how that is how it manifests. Like, oh, I'm allowed to have sexual pleasure, but I can't give it to myself. It has to be within the context of partnered sex with a
Mm-hmm.
man. And
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like the way sex is defined in our society is also
Penis
centered
in
around
vagina. Like,
it. And not only that, it starts when the penis enters the vagina and it ends when the man ejaculates.
yeah.
That is like a kind of the default definition of sex. And it has nothing to do with women's pleasure. And it has like we have words like foreplay and hooking up to describe other things that are about women's pleasure. And those are seen as like extra, like the icing on top, or like they're not necessary for sex to be sex. There's even like, the sort of trope of people asking queer people, like, who's the man in the relationship? Or like,
Oh my God, you're
do
right.
you guys don't even have real sex or whatever to like, women on women sex, um, because there's not a penis penetrating anything. So unless somebody was like strapping, which I think is like the ignorant people asking who's the man, they picture there must be one person in the relationship who wears the fake penis always and,
Because
gives it
sex
to the other
without a
person.
penis is not sex.
And men love penises. Men are obsessed with penises. It's funny, like it's low-key kind of gay how much straight men love penises. They're watching straight porn. They don't want a man with a little dick. They want that big, rock hard dick, and they want it just pounded. It's silly. And so, we're all just talking about the hardware, not to mention the software. I think last time we talked a little bit about the book Come As You Are. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, that's a whole nother topic, which is just like how our mental and emotional states affects our sexuality. Like nobody is giving a shit about how the piling up of stress, domestic labor, childcare responsibilities, emotional labor, mental load is affecting women's desire and ability to orgasm because it's not considered relevant or important on like a grand scale. It's like if you're stressed or you have a headache, like some people would argue you have a duty as a
Yeah.
wife to like allow him to violate your body whenever your body is saying no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Like what a wild world we live in where that is considered not
Normal.
only normal, but like admirable. Like you're a good wife, a good partner, a good person if you do that. And if you don't do it, you're selfish. You're depriving him of something that he is entitled to.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
If you were in a relationship with a woman, how would that work? Who would be the one that was entitled? And who would be the one who had to turn their desire off to, tolerate being
Please the
touched?
other. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, it, when you take the patriarchal norms out of it, it no longer makes as much sense to anybody who it might have made a little bit of sense to before. And I think we're giving extreme examples, but again, like I know like smart, emotionally intelligent, self-loving, ambitious, liberal women, straight women in straight relationships who I'm trying to find the right language here because I want to say like who have been sort of, I don't know, it's almost like it's a little Stockholm syndrome-y. It's a little like blinded by like there's a combination of all the societal stuff we've been talking about and then our attachment systems. And so I think whenever our attachment systems are in a state of unrest, like we have this attachment object, our partner who has become our attachment object because we've invested a lot of time and energy into them. Maybe we live together. Maybe our lives have become entangled and our relationship is public. Maybe we have kids together and like own a house together. And so there's all these entanglements. And, your body comes up with this reaction that says on like a very fundamental level, like,
No.
no, ew, get space, get
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
no. And then whenever it makes it up to your brain is like, but that's this person who I live with, but that's this
Yeah.
person who I'm going to this work function with on Friday.
Gaslighting of the self
That's
happens.
and so you try to like make sense of it all and you say,
Mm-hmm.
well, he didn't really mean it. He was just upset. He was just stressed. And that's how his dad talked to them and yada, yada, yada. And you sort of jump through all these hoops in your mind to make it honestly, I think to make it okay for yourself, to make
Yeah.
yourself feel like, well, I know, like, I think I would feel silly society would make me feel silly for leaving based on this. society would say this isn't a good enough reason to leave. You're supposed to tolerate this from men. You are obligated to tolerate this from men. So since society isn't supporting me to leave, I need to jump through hoops in my mind to make myself feel safe staying in this situation.
Yes.
And that breaks my heart.
It's also most likely something that you were doing in childhood before. And so
Because you had to stay with
you
your parents.
because you had to stay with your parents for survival. And so you
Yeah.
got used to self-abandonment, people pleasing. You got used to like responding to your intuitive knowing that something is not right with rationalizing it, with gaslighting yourself.
And with like trying to, I feel like there's a lot of like trying to expand how much you can tolerate. Well, I just need to learn how to calm down. I need to get over it.
Mm,
I shouldn't get so upset about that. Or I need to go to therapy. I need to write in my journal.
mhm,
There's a lot of like, well, if I just grew into the kind of person who could tolerate this, then our relationship would be okay. And there's a lot less like holding him accountable. There's a lot less like, um, well, if he does this, like there puts in like 2 cents worth of effort, then I have to stay, even though I'm in thousands of dollars of debt. I will have to stay and accept his 2 cents at a time rather than just like sending that shit to collections and
mm,
moving on with your life. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. There's so much here.
So much here. Yeah, I feel like the the themes that we've sort of been harping on, my brain is coalescing them into a little list, which is like decenter men. Men are not the center of your relationship. Men are not the center of the universe. Like, if your brain starts jumping through hoops about like what he said, what he feels, what he thinks, what he wants, just like kind of shut that up for a second and return to the first part where you said, I feel da na na before the but, and just pause. Just stop. I feel this. My body doesn't like this. My
Yeah,
nerve system wants to run away right now. And before you start saying, but I need to get over it, but he's trying, but da, 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 just fucking stop and let that reality sink in with you for like 30 seconds.
yeah,
You know, I feel like that can be what decentering men looks like, and centering yourself is like just before you say, think, feel, do anything about him. It's like, yeah, he's in the picture, but like before you let him into the picture, have you really taken in this picture, the picture of
mhm,
yourself? What's
mhm,
going on with you?
mhm. Yeah, and
Stay in the relationship, you
that's a
know? Do you
lot
have
to come up against because, society teaches women that we're not worthy of that. That like, who
a,
are we to be like, hey, I'm demanding more from a man?
oh,
You know?
oh, okay, but who are you to demand more from a man? Are you a greedy little bitch, or are you a revolutionary woman? Are you an unfuckwithable badass? Are you somebody who would find more joy in living a single life than parenting an adult fucking man?
Yes.
You know, that seems pretty normal to me. That seems,
It's funny that greedy bitch was the first thing you said because I'm in this group where once a month we each take turns leading a circle and it's all women in the group and we call ourselves the Greedy Bitches Club. So
yes,
like
I
part of it
love that.
too, like part of this whole topic of like being a woman and like sexuality is like really taking back certain words, like being like, yeah, I'm a slut, or like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the word pussy. And yeah, I'm greedy. So fucking what? Yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
bitch sometimes. So what? I'm a
yeah.
multifaceted human. I'm allowed to be greedy, to be a bitch, but I'm also fucking kind and loving at the same time. Like,
If you were a man, they would say you take charge. You know, you're a
exactly.
self-starter. You
Yeah.
know what you're worth, and
Yes.
so I love that. I love the greedy bitches club. That's so good. Which I feel like brings us to another the bullet point on the summary of things that we've been mentioning over and fucking over again. Decenter men, which can be like just sitting with yourself for a second. Decenter men slash pay attention to what's actually going on inside of you and like pretend if you can't believe that it is valid. Like imagine what the world would be like for you if that feeling were valid, what that would mean for you,
Mhm.
and let that sink in. So step one. Step two, ask for what you want. Once you have come to terms with what you want, say it like you're a real whole person deserving of respect, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Say it like you grew up in a world where women were the leaders of society and empathy and kindness and self-care were normal, and uh being disrespected was like,
Mhm.
what? Like that's so abnormal and wrong. I'm like, to me, that's like an appropriate reaction to somebody disrespecting you that we're having to like relearn because we were taught when somebody disrespects us to like freeze or fawn. And so like last time we met, you talked about my Instagram bio being 50% brain wizard, goblin, and 10% existential depression. But I changed it from existential depression to existential rage because I am done being sad. I'm done
Uh,
being sad, bitch. I'm ready to start being rude about it. I'm ready to start
yes.
being angry about it. I'm ready to start being loud. I'm ready to start being kind of a fucking bitch because that's the appropriate response to somebody disrespecting you.
Mm.
The appropriate response to somebody getting in your space is back off. And I feel like step one was me being like, instead of being like, oh, it's okay, walk over me, I started to learn to just be like silent and register in myself. I don't like that. And then make different decisions. I won't put myself in there anymore. That's a beautiful first step. I've spent years in that zone. No shame in the game. But I will tell you that I'm so stoked for this next step of being unafraid to be loud and rude and mean and disliked, and for people to not understand why I'm making such a big deal about it. Because the fact that you don't see that it's a big deal is not my problem. That is
Mhm.
your problem, and you'll get there. And in the meantime, I'm going to lead by example by demonstrating that if somebody touches you when that wasn't invited, it's okay to go, back off. Don't touch me. Instead of just being like, oh, excuse me, you know?
Yes.
Fucking,
Yes.
that's how people learn, you know?
Yes.
You don't, like, I used to have a bulldog. People didn't want to tell her not to jump on them. You know, she was excited and they would be like, get down, get down. And I would be like, she's not going to listen to you. If you say, get down, you got to say, get off me, bitch. And then she'll listen because she's a dog, and like that's the part of her, like that's how she understands. Like
Yeah.
you got to show her with your nervous system and with your body, no, I don't
Yes.
like this is not acceptable, you're violating me. And
Yes.
I think that needs to be brought back into normal human society. Stop suppressing that shit. You know, if you're not ready to say back the fuck off, then just take a minute and ask for what you want in a polite way. You know, I believe in you. I believe that you can do that, girly pop. Yeah,
Um,
I love that. I feel like, we could all just use like a dedicated, like once a month, just like fuck off to the wall, to the air, like practice saying it with your body. Because
yes.
even if we know, like, even if we know in our logical mind, like if someone's attacking me, it's okay to fight back. Your nervous system might still just freeze because you're not practiced in fighting back. Like it's a skill. Learning how to react
Yeah.
is a skill.
Yeah. And please just know for anyone that's listening that like because you're following your truth when you do this, everything will be okay.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I just want to like um throw it out there that like because it's a skill, it means that it's not going to feel right the first few times.
Yeah.
It's going to feel weird and awkward, and like
Yeah.
you might not be very good at it. Like not me judging, but you might look back at your first attempt and be like, that wasn't what I hoped it'd be.
Sure.
um, learned a lesson the hard way, and that's cool. And that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. If anything, it means you're on the right path.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, also, do you know the song As Good a Reason by Paris Paloma?
Uh-uh.
Oh, that like ties into the rage stuff that you talked about. Look it up.
I'm also writing that one down because I always love a good rage jam.
Yeah. She's a new artist that I'm keeping my eye on. Is there anything else that you hoped you would have space to share today?
Mm. I mean, I feel like we got to a lot of it. Decenter men, listen to yourself, ask for what you want. I think that like implied in asking for what you want is like learning how to get comfortable with direct communication, like building up that skill of speaking up for yourself. And and there has to be a willingness to disobey the rules. Like as you start to listen to yourself, your brain's going to say, but man, but rules. And whenever your brain gives you but, you have to just like be willing to just let those live in a box for a minute and say, what if those buts weren't a factor today? Like, what if I was just listening to my body and myself? What would I want? Like, let yourself get outside the realm of reality. Let yourself imagine decisions that you don't think you would make. If you think you would never be willing to leave your husband, just say in your mind's eye, like as a little exercise, like, okay, even if I don't want this to be my choice, for my mind's sake, I'm going to imagine, what if I was willing to entertain that possibility? What would my life look like? What would I like about that experience? What would I dislike about that experience? Because that can even inform the way you're going to move forward within your relationship. Within my marriage, I want more of this and less of this. And I think sometimes even to come to those conclusions, we have to be willing to think outside the box a little bit and contemplate realities that we have been like trained over and over again from the time that we were born to not contemplate, to shut down, to ignore, to
Yeah.
dismiss.
Yeah. And I love what you just said, because for any relationship to be healthy, we have to be willing to let that relationship die. So if you're trying on, like, even if I don't want this, I want to leave, like that brings you a lot of clarity. And even if you're happy and you are like you have that willingness of like, the reality is, even if you're in a healthy relationship, you never know when it'll end. Like
Yeah,
death is a thing that can happen
totally.
at any fucking time. Um,
Yeah.
it,
They say the same thing about singledom. Like, if you want to find a relationship, become happy being single first.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which I think is like, I think the common thread there is like, there are so many possibilities and so many versions of reality. And sometimes you get to control them and sometimes you don't. And so it's really just a matter of getting super real with yourself. Like, what, what choice do I actually have? What choices do I have that I have been telling myself I don't have? And what choices don't I have that I have been thinking I do have? Like, maybe I've been thinking I have the choice to get over this, and I'm learning that this is a deal breaker for me. Or maybe it's, I thought I didn't have the choice to leave, and now I'm getting real with myself. I do. Or I thought I didn't have the choice to ask for this. I thought I didn't have the choice to have sex in a different way, or to sleep in a different room, or to do relationships in a different way, or, live in separate houses. Can you tell I fucking love having my own space? I fucking love having my own space, and I love love. And after we cuddle, please leave. This is my house. Yeah. So, but that was one of the lessons that I had to come around to myself too, which is that you can love somebody and like be in a healthy relationship with them, and you don't have to follow this relationship escalator of like first you move in and then you get married and then you have
Mm-hmm.
kids, blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah.
And even for people listening who are like monogamous, I mean, I'm not going to assume that you're like monogamous or poly because I haven't asked you that question. But for people listening who are monogamous, it is said in the research that that space is helpful for attraction. Like the more time you spend with your partner, the less of a mystery they are, and the more the desire to like your desire is based on on mystery, according to the
Yes,
psychology research that
like
I have
Esther
read. Like
Perel.
Esther Perel's
Yeah,
Mating and Captivity book is basically
yeah,
like a big argument for that point.
yeah. And it's not like poly relationships are always the answer to that, but I think that it's having these conversations. Like maybe you learn about poly and you have a conversation, not about opening your relationship, but just about like, oh, I've never thought it was okay to be honest with you about the fact that I'm attracted to this person or that person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe being able to talk about what you're attracted to helps your partner understand you better and what you like and what you want from them and your relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a
I
lot of
there
good communication things you can bring in, not only from polyamory, but even from like BDSM, how there has to be like certain things that you communicate ahead of time and talk about like what's the aftercare you need. Like there's a lot that straight relationships can learn, straight vanilla relationships, I guess, since I'm bringing in the topic of BDSM, can learn
Yeah.
about like communication and connection if you just open your mind to like learn about that and see like, okay, how can I bring that into my experience? Like how can that benefit me?
Yeah. Yes, and I love that you mentioned the kink community too, because again, those are people who like had for one other reason to another to challenge the sexual societal norms that have been hoisted upon us.
Yeah.
um so anytime you get into a community where people are sort of living against the grain in one way or the other, they will have developed skills in order to have made that work for them. And there's always something to learn. Um, but I think that, like, an important takeaway for any of you who are afraid to have difficult conversations or awkward conversations or conversations where, like, maybe you want to talk about this stuff, but you don't even know what you want to say or how to talk about it or what's important to talk about. I think hopefully to encourage you to just start and not be so afraid of it. It will help you to know that no, like, good relationship, no relationship that is actually compatible, meant to work long term, is going to be damaged by like more intimacy, more connection, knowing more about each other, more conversations about these kinds of things. Like if your partner truly like wants to like know and love everything about you, then they're not going to be offended by you like just trying, stumbling awkwardly to know more about them and for them to know more about you, whether it comes to sex or emotional relationship dynamics or domestic shit or whatever.
Mhm. Mm.
It's always good, or it should always be good. And if not, then like, have you contemplated how the fact that you can never have difficult conversations is affecting um, decenter men? Revert to step one. Think about how you feel. Um,
Restart program.
yes. Oh, can I plug a little thing, by the way?
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah,
Um,
share with people where they can find you as well.
especially, I feel like if you're in that, like, kind of, I don't even really know where to start, or you're not fully sure what your feelings, thoughts, etc. would be like if you decentered men or weren't caring about other people all the time. Start here. Start with nervous system exercises. I just compiled a library of them. I took a bunch of my favorites and I organized them according to the situation when you need them. So I have like emotional emergency, or like lying down before bed, or, if you've had like a tough day and you need to shake it off, there are different exercises under each of those categories that will help you come out of fight or flight or freeze or fawn and into a more regulated state, which is where our best thinking happens, our best creativity happens. It's where our best problem solving happens. And it's where we're just like thinking clearly and feeling more like ourselves. We're more resourced, more grounded, able to make better decisions, not influenced by all the, but what if, I feel, I think, you can kind of like quiet all of that and get back to yourself with these exercises. There's a bunch of them depending on what your vibe is.
And where can people find that?
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I made it. It's there. Go find it.
Good luck.
If you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is at Jen Dayton. And at the link in my bio, I have it linked there under free resources. Or you can go to my website, jendayton.com/uncle-jen's-library, Uncle Jen's Library with hyphens in between them.
I'll
That
put it in the
is
show
where you
notes
can
too.
find all the goodies. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Go look there. Lots of free good stuff. And I'm always growing it. You don't have to put in your email address or anything. It's just there. I just want people to feel better.
Oh, that's so sweet. Um, I would love to ask you also two questions before we close out. And these are both questions I asked you the last time I had you on, but we're dynamic beings and our answers change. So the first one is, what does self-love mean to you?
Yes. I mean, of course, all these topics are fresh on my mind, but I really do think maybe this was my answer last time too. We can do it for science. But I think that so much of it is about like coming back to center, like quieting all those the what ifs, the societal voices, the other people's feelings and opinions. This isn't to say you don't care about other people, but it is loving to listen to yourself, to be present with yourself, the same way it's loving to be present with a friend and listen to them whenever they're upset. It is loving to listen to yourself, to validate yourself, to respect yourself and treat yourself as if your feelings and needs matter. So I think that all of the exercises that we've talked about today, just like breaking down the rules and the what ifs and the XYZ person is more important than me, and just like taking yourself seriously. That's huge. Huge foundational piece of self-love.
Yeah. I love that. I don't know if that was your answer last time, but eventually, Valentine's Day 2026, I'll be doing a compilation of everyone's answers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well,
And
then we can see
then,
if my
we'll
answer
compare.
changed. Cool.
And then the final question I would love to know is, what's your favorite part about your queer identity?
I love breaking rules. I used to hate it. I used to again, I was like so scared to not be a good girl. And the more I grow comfortable with breaking rules, the more like my queer identity and all these things that I've learned from queer dating that we mentioned today, all of the having to question everything and, learn how to separate other people's reactions to you from like your own inner reality. Those were life-changing skills that have helped my spirit blossom in so many other areas of life. I absolutely would not be the creative person that I am today, the entrepreneur that I am today, the just there's so many areas of life in which I've felt free to kind of go my own way that I know started in those early days of just having to accept that I wasn't into women in a straight way. I was into women in a very queer way. I love the word queer too, because, I love that we are reclaiming the word queer because it just means like weird, like a little
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
a little interesting,
Yeah.
intriguing.
And it definitely
And
used to be more derogatory. Like when I first
yeah,
started doing these episodes like 3 or 4 years ago, and I would ask this question, I would be like, the first time I asked, I'd be like, how are they going to react? Are they going to get mad that I just asked them like in that way? And it like always landed well. I'm like,
it's so funny because I've been using the word queer for a long time, but I even in the past year had a straight woman be like, "Oh, like you use the word queer? I thought that was like a bad word." And I was like, "Oh, I guess hello straights. Straights. Let me catch you up on a bit of queer culture. The word queer is back in. Queer's cool. We like the word queer. If anything,
queer is
a
so
lot of
hot right now.
queer so hot right now. If anything, we like the word queer because it's a unifying term, like we don't have to. Some people love getting really nitty gritty with their labels. And I love that for them because that means they've really taken time to sit with themselves and contemplate who they are. But I think that there's also something really freeing about the word queer as a label that just says, I know I'm a little different and I don't know exactly in what way or in what that means, or like I'm not ready to like box that around and with a label, but I want to identify, I want to give language to the fact that I see something in me that goes against this heteropatriarchal norm grain. And I honor it and I wear it proudly.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
We're
Love that.
weird.
Love
We're
that.
weird and proud. We let those freak flags fly, baby.
Yeah, I love that. Like maybe you're not ready to put yourself in a box, and maybe you don't even fucking want to ever put yourself in a box. Maybe you
Yeah,
like just let it be fluid if that's what you want.
totally. Oh, wholesome story, real quick to close. I heard a Reddit story the other day about a straight couple, like a man and a woman couple, and the man was writing this Reddit post saying he's pretty sure he's gay because all of his attractions outside of his wife are to men, and uh, he he doesn't ever want to tell his wife because she's genuinely his soulmate and he genuinely loves her and is really attracted to her and loves having sex with her.
Mhm.
And he would never want to make her feel like she wasn't enough for him. So he was just going to live his whole life quietly thinking, I'm gay except for this one woman.
Mhm.
And after all the people in the comments were encouraging him, he ended up talking to his wife about it. And she was, very accepting about it. He like never wants to explore it outside their marriage. That was another factor too. And it turns out she also thinks she's bisexual and never wants to explore it outside their marriage. So they're just going to go the rest of their lives in this straight marriage being queer and actually, in my opinion, being in a queer relationship because they're both queer, even if their relationship appears hetero on the outside.
Yeah.
Um, but but they would never have known that about themselves if they hadn't just like been open to the possibility, been open to having this conversation. And I think there's something like really sweet and beautiful about just like kind of having that like little secret truth about yourselves with each other. And
That brings
it
you
like
closer.
it matters to you, but like, it doesn't have to be anybody else's business. It's just like this special little knowledge you have with each other. I think that that's so
Mhm.
beautiful. And, whether it's about attraction to other people or some other way that you want to like be in relationships or something else you noticed about yourself, like, I think that having the space to share that with your partner is so special and wholesome. I love it whenever relationships get better because somebody reveals like a vulnerable truth.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's such a cute story. Thank you for sharing that.